viable solution to solve our problems. I know it doesn't make sense, but growing up in a community where violence is prevalent and everybody is bigger than you and a little more intimidated makes you have to come up with different strategies to even out the playing fields. That's why head-up fights become 3 or 4 on 1, or when kids begin to equal out the fighting field with a gun. The man's 150 pounds soaking wet. There's no way he's gonna try to fight nobody bigger than him. By this time, our minds are made up. And I've heard it best said that if you live by the gun, you die by the gun. That's how many of us find ourselves being so young with so much time in prison. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Marshawn Turpin.
How's everybody doing? We appreciate your presence. Thank you, Mr. Bernardez. I'm going to speak to everyone about incarceration. Along with that, I have some facts from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. First, I would like to speak about the road I traveled which led me to my incarceration. Next, the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Then, how me being incarcerated affect my family and loved ones. Finally, some solutions I believe could have helped me and could possibly help the youth from traveling down this road. My name is Marshawn Turpin. I'm a proud member of the BPC Youth Committee. I'm a father of 2, happily married, and I'm 24 years old. I was born in Chicago, Illinois on the South Side. I've been incarcerated for roughly 5 years now, 2 years in Pierce County, and the remainder of my 5 here. Now this isn't for me to get an understanding, but for all of you. I told myself if I'm going to do this speech and present this, that I wouldn't withhold any information. First, I would like to let everyone here be well aware that I was sentenced to 40 years at the age of 21 for what was supposed to be a robbery but turned into a tragic homicide. According to the state of Washington, I'm expected to be 60 years old by the time I re-enter society. The reason I say according to the state of Washington is because I believe that I will not spend 40 years in prison. We never know what events may occur or transpire to bring us home, such as bills being passed for parole, time being taken off or earning time off, etc. What I did that landed me here is important because it made me realize how precious another human being life is, and to take responsibility for my own actions. I'm aware that all of you are here on the outside looking in, but allow me to paint a vivid picture. I was born and raised around violence. Growing up, all I saw was shootouts, drive-bys, people standing on corners selling drugs, gambling, running from the cops. And those same people embraced me by giving me money to go buy clothes, food, candy, ice cream, you know, the basic junk food necessities as a kid. Now I know why my mother so desperately wanted to provide better living circumstances for her children, myself included. But the projects, low-income housing, was all that she could sustain for the time being. I didn't have a father figure growing up, so I turned to the streets looking for the closest thing to fill that void, which turned out to be older friends, homies whom I call brothers, but we're living a fast life, also known as getting money or making money illegally. Buying cars, chains, houses, having their way with women, which made providing food, gas, rent money easier for my mother, brothers, and sisters. It made me feel good to be able to step up and take the place of being the so-called man of the household. In all actuality, I never solved those problems. It just prolonged them. Now, I'm not just blaming my parents for their absence, but that does play a role. I also blame myself, our youth, because we also have a choice to make. I've made choices of bad friends. I used to tell myself on the streets, I may not get to choose my family, but I get to choose my friends. Now, just by show of hands here, how many people are familiar with the saying, you are the company you keep? I wasn't able to put that into its proper perspective until now. Now, just by show of hands again, how many people in this room today believe that it's just nature for their children or a child to go against rules or restriction that has been set in place? And this is why I don't just blame my parents, or why my father isn't a bad parent for being there, for not being there, or why my mother isn't a bad parent for the decisions that I've made. Rules and restrictions have been broken whether my mother knew it or not. It's often that we, the youth, do these things to keep our parents in the dark about them, our secret lives. We're making those decisions. I've made those decisions. All the while, those rules and restrictions my mother set in place that I felt so desperately to keep to myself after breaking them would lead for making bad decisions, bad choices of friends, which led to all-night partying, which led to staying late, which led to drugs and alcohol, to having children at a young age, which led to dropping out of school, committing crimes to make more money because I felt school wasn't going to provide right then and there, which finally landed me where I am today, in prison. These are facts from Bureau of the Justice Statistics. Since 2002, the United States has had the highest incarceration rate in the world. Even though prison populations are increasing in some parts of the world, the natural rate of incarceration for countries comparable to the United States tends to stay around 100 prisoners per 100,000. The U.S. rate is 500 prisoners per 100,000 residents, which is about 1.6 million prisoners. Since we're in a male prison, let me talk real briefly about the population of men. Men make up 90% of the prison and local jail population. We have an imprisonment rate 14 times higher than the rate of women. And the men are overwhelmingly young. Incarceration rates are highest for us in our 20s and 30s. Us prisoners also tend to be less educated. The average state prisoner has a 10th grade education. 70% has not completed high school. Incarceration rates are significantly higher for black men. In 2010, black men were incarcerated at a rate of 3,074, while Latinos were incarcerated at a rate of 1,258, and white men were incarcerated at 459. Blacks, particularly black males, make up a disproportionate share of the U.S. prison population. In 2008, black men ages 18 through 34 were at least 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than young white men, according to a recent analysis by a University of Washington sociologist, which also finds that young black males without high school diplomas were more likely to be in prison or jail at 37%. Me being part of this statistic has really put my family at a loss. Loss of a husband, dad, son, brother, nephew, cousin, uncle, maybe even a grandfather in the future. Expenses, money on the phone just to call home. Money at Western Union to buy decent hygiene, better food, shoes, electronics, appliances, even money to drive up to visit for a few hours. All these things, by my being here, has truly affected my loved ones, even by heart, because it's not just financially, but spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I've never been incarcerated before this, not even as a juvenile. I did get an eye-opener. There wasn't a second chance. Here's a solution to help young men rise out of situations and circumstances that's getting them locked up. Put them into programs and events, but be there to support them by showing up. Your presence alone says a lot to the youth. The victim, in my case, could have been that person that I needed to look up to. had we met under different circumstances. Use that intuition and encourage us to listen, because you're going to see things that we, the youth, are not. And way to connect with the youth is to have fun with them by taking them places, doing things with them, and keeping them close to you. This exact same connecting could have helped me by showing me the true meaning of living life and having fun. Because the living life and having fun I embraced was asinine, stupid, and silly. It's important to change the way we address the youth, children problems, because we always have to keep in mind that there is a time and place for everything, but we must not get frustrated with the youth, children ourselves. This statistic used today is very important, and everyone should care, because this is life, everyday life. This is our history. This is your life, my life, but the bigger picture is it's our future. Thank you. We appreciate your presence.
Y'all still with us? Yeah, boy. Thank you, Mr. Turpin. Quentin Crisp once said, the youth always have the same problem: how to rebel and conform at the same time. They have now solved this by defying their parents and copying one another. None of us have the ability to choose what conditions we're born into. But just like many youth in our communities, one of Mr. Turpin's misfortunes was growing up without a father. The absence of a father or a father figure in someone's life is crucial, because a mother cannot teach a boy how to make the transition from a boy into a man. And when you come from a community as fragmented as ours, we don't have many positive examples or role models to turn to. This is why many young people are put in position to have to learn how to be men from one another. Mix that with growing up around violence on a day-to-day basis, and your end result will most likely be death or prison. Y'all still with me, right? Among the many troubled youth, there I was in the midst of them. The action that led me to prison was murder, and I was 18 years old. A bad decision led me to a 30-year prison sentence. One of the things that changed my perspective was a letter that I got from my victim's mother. She said, "Please don't let prison ruin you. Make something of yourself, and let the last bad decision you made be the one that landed you in prison." And with the work that I have involved myself with the BPC, I believe I'm not allowing prison to ruin me. It's making sure that I become a better person and allowing me to serve the youth of our communities with a greater purpose. I want to thank y'all for coming out, man. It's from the outside looking in, it's easy to only perceive men who are incarcerated as prisoners. However, look what us prisoners was able to accomplish today. Y'all still with me, right? I just gotta make sure, man. I just gotta make sure, that's it. The BPC and our youth committee have come up with some solutions surrounding education, employment, business, and better community action involvement in young people's lives. To speak more a little more about our proposed solutions, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Carter. I definitely got to say, as the BPC really watching these young dudes prepare and get ready for these for this event today, I've been pretty proud of these dudes.
for really stepping out of the box and really being able to be honest with themselves. Because I think that the first step is really about accountability. It's about being accountable to yourself first. Then, once you're accountable to yourself, you're able to be accountable to others. So I would definitely like to say that, man, I'm proud of all of you guys. And I would like for us all to please give these young men a round of applause. I definitely want to say that the BPC organizations that support us, we don't condone violence. We don't condone the things that these young men did to get them to prison. But I think that it's important for us to really be able to identify the tragedies that are landing people in prison in order for us to figure out what we need to do to address them. The thread that inevitably ties all of our lives together is the thread of violence. And for many of us, it's perpetuated by the culture of poverty. It is the one thing that many of us has picked up, which is the hardest to put down. For some reason, violence is just one of those things that we will never be able to rid ourselves of. But there are things that we can do to make sure that when it does come, that it doesn't come as frequent, and the results are less tragic. Even as prisoners, we still deal with the issues of gangs, race, and they inflame into violent situations sometimes. And as the BPC, the best way that we've learned how to deal with many of these issues is for us to create opportunities to transcend them. This is one of the reasons why the BPC created the TEACH program here in Clallam Bay. Because it not only gave us a chance at a college level education, but it nurtures an atmosphere for black, brown, and white to really be able to come into an environment and learn together. As long as we create ways to get the unfamiliar working together, we can alleviate many problems. And I believe the same principle can be applied for today's youth. Right now they're working on using $210 million to build a new juvenile detention center in Seattle. And depending on who you talk to, they say it's pretty much a done deal. There isn't much the community can do to stop it. But what the community can do is we can put in enough work with these youngsters on the prevention side of things to make them regret building it in the first place. To young struggling kids, poverty is more than a number that determines social status or family income. Poverty is a crippling stigma that represents everything undesirable about life. Poverty is synonymous with being poor, dumb, disgusting, untrustworthy, lazy, worthless, ugly, incapable, and undeserving. Everything a child tries desperately to separate themselves from. But when the child begins to digest that poison, it begins to slowly kill their spirit. Their dreams and the brightness of their future begins to fade away. So with a cloudy outlook on the future, not many children are willing to work towards any goals because their dismantled imagination only allows them to believe in things that they can see with their eyes, touch with hands. So everything must be direct, and it must be inclusive. That is why the solution to poverty is the opportunities they want for us, we must for them. There's three things on the agenda today. Many guys share this. BPC create a place that will commit $1,250 to young kids struggling in school, raise their grades, and complete their classes. And our mission is to reach out to community organizations and church, get them to match our pledge of $1,250. We are hoping to find 100 organizations to match our pledge as a way of getting the community more involved with addressing the learning gap and the dropout rates that are existing among inner city youth. Second, we are also working to implement the BPC Young Merchant Work Model, which is also attached to what you guys got. And it is a work program that is geared toward helping our youth establish stronger social skills and work ethic, which will help them establish equity within poor communities. The Young Merchant Work Program is geared towards making youth an intricate part of the efforts to reestablish businesses, institutions, and organizations within their communities. This work model is important if we want to challenge their beliefs, which will restructure their values. But most importantly and finally, a youth summit in the community. It's the final effort we will be looking to create during the later part of the summer in order to use the skeletons listed above as a way to bring the youth together with the rest of the community so they can help us have a better understanding of what needs to happen in order for us to breathe life into these ideas. We will also be encouraging them to provide us with more input and advice as to what more the community can do to support their ideas and projects that they have in mind as a way to help them reduce youth violence and criminal activities in our neighborhoods. This youth summit will make sure that we continue to provide our youth with a platform to have their voices heard, because I think that we need to stop having meetings about our children without our children.
Amen.
This all needs to be a community effort, because it is a community's problem. And the lives being destroyed and discarded are our community's children. So every method we have used before must change, and our energy must reflect our attitudes if we are sincere about organizing this work. So that means that our networks must expand and our relationships must improve, because this problem is too big for one organization to face alone. Now, this will be the time where we will bring various organizations and youth programs together to make this happen. Because this is a community event which will require community resources and community involvement. So when it comes to young people, it's more about what we do than what we say. So let's show them that we can love them better than the streets can. And if you feel like you cannot reach out to them, then this is where the BPC can come in to help, to collaborate, so we can begin working from the inside out. We just hope that you're all ready to be a part of it. All right, so this will be the time where we'll begin to go into our question and answer period. So we've got to slide these tables together, adjust the mics, and different types of things of that nature. For those of you guys who do have questions, if you want to ask them from your seat, that's fine. If you want to come up to the podium and ask them as a way of being heard, we would definitely encourage that. But when you come up and you ask your question, please, for us, state your name, what organization that you work with, and then we'll move from there. All right, so if you guys need to stand up, stretch your legs, go ahead and work your magic while we get these tables and stuff together. All right, so we're doing pretty good for time, so we definitely want to begin our question and answer period. I know there may be people who have questions, comments, concerns that they would like to talk about, but like I said again, if you got some questions that you want to ask many of these young men here, just come up to the mic, or you can stand and ask for your seat. Start off with who you are, where you come from, organization that you work with, and then we can kind of move to your questions. Before we get to that, I would like to invite Mr. Hubbard up to the microphone to give his little 2 cents.
I'm a BPC member, and I also was locked up here. At the age of 19, they gave me life without the possibility of parole for not telling on my brother. That was what my crime was. And I just want to let the youngsters up here know and out there, it is hope. The judge told me I would leave prison in a pine box. I got out 3 years ago. Not only did I get out 3 years ago, do come out from prison so they can have somewhere to work, where you don't have to worry about a background check, where you don't have to worry about an address. You will have an address to come out to that's DOC approved. You could have a job with skills. So for you brothers up here with your time, when the brother said, I'm not going to do all that time, Kamani's my witness. Most of the guys in here that know me is my witness. I told everybody I wasn't going to do life in prison. People looked at me and was like, I didn't even know you had life in prison because you didn't act like you had life in prison. So don't give up the hope, because it is a way to get out if you do the right thing. Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name is Yvette Gaston. I work for King County Superior Court Drug Court. And I have many questions, but I'm going to ask them all. And I was trying to hold back because I do talk a lot, so I won't try to today. But listening to a lot of what the brothers were saying about the different challenges and stuff that's out here in the streets and the drugs and not having mentors and places to go and all these things around. My question to you is, so when you get a youngster and they're addicted, they're out there, they're addicted to drugs, they want that fast life, you offer them a job, you try to force them to go into the job, and the excitement of that lifestyle is way more better than $9 an hour that they might make on this little job. Having a unique opportunity to work with young brothers and have a work under a judge, Judge St. Clair, that is trying to be more innovative and try to figure out ways besides locking people up that we can be more helpful. So my question then to you is, because someone said something real profound, is that if you on drugs, you like drugs, they make you feel good, then me telling you gotta get off drugs, and if you get off drugs, then we're going to make sure that this particular felony is off your record. It's not enough because you're not ready to get off of it. What can I do in that unique situation where I can mentor, I can try to offer a job, or I can maybe go into a drug program? But with all that, if you're still not getting off, and I'm losing you, and you're dying, and now you got a bigger charge, and now you're in the adult system, what can I do to help?
For me, and John K. Chapman again, for me, in my household, and I don't want to make it seem like my mother didn't do the best that she could, but as I stated, my drug abuse came from generation after generation after generation. You know, my grandfather was sentenced to prison 2 consecutive life sentences for something that this brother was sentenced for not telling on somebody else. And ultimately, he died in the Las Vegas prison. So, what it is for me, I had the mentors who would come and say, listen, I know that you're smoking this weed, I know you're selling this weed, I know your mom's having problems, but as soon as their grant was done, they were there. There was, yeah, I can put you in this program and I can help you avoid the jail time or any of the negatives that come from the drugs. But like I said, once their grant was done, once they clocked out, they really clocked out. And my thing is, I feel like if I had somebody who was still calling after their shift was done, if I had somebody who would still pop up at my house after their shift was done, someone who would come on the weekends and say, what you doing? Oh, I'm gonna go hit the block with my, oh no, why don't you guys come with me? Why don't you guys come, let's just go to the park or something, let's go talk about something. That's what a lot of kids is, at least with me, I couldn't talk to my mom the way I could talk to other people, you know what I'm saying? Like I told my mom, yeah, I'm on the gang, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But when it came that, Mom, I don't really want to do this. I really want to work. I really want to raise my son the way that I wasn't raised. I couldn't talk to her like that. And that's what the problem is. These kids don't have anybody to talk to. And we tell them all the time, oh, you can talk to me. But the cry for help is rarely noticed. Rarely noticed. And it's more than just a rebellion. Sometimes they're really telling me, I need help. You know what I'm saying? So, like he said, with the Beyond Scared Straight, you can't yell at 10 kids. Because 10 kids have different effects. 10 kids are going through 10 different things. You might be able to touch one, but you have to realize that early, that Chapman got something in him. Chapman's listening to me. Chapman's respecting what I'm telling him. He wants to change. And I'm not saying leave those ones alone. But what I'm saying is you have to give a little bit more. We all have to give a little bit more. And that's how we start to break the cycle.
Transitioning from being, I guess, hanging out with friends and being the cool kid and transitioning into an organizer and actually trying to get active and, you know, persuade some of my friends to do the same. So my question is, how can I go back to the community and get more people involved in coming to meetings and actually discussing major issues like this? I mean, it's one way that you can say, just come and join me, but a lot of my friends have, to be honest, just shot down. From you guys, what would you guys say that I should go back and share?
I'm Carlos Bernardes, and to kind of answer that question, I think that the proof is in the pudding. For me, being in the streets and the things that I was doing in the streets made me feel good. You have to make the people that you're trying to get with you, to work with you, you got to get them to feel good about the work that they're trying to create. That's one of the things that Mr. Carter has done for me. You know, I come from the Central District where Mr. Diller said it's the crime district. That's the only life I've ever known. But now I have a different perspective on life because he's been able to show me that doing this work and creating this work, I can feel just as good as I felt when I was out on the streets doing the wrong things.
Before we go on, I wanted to also kind of piggyback on what Mr. Carlos Bernardes says. Are you going to stand up here? You didn't have to go back to your seat. Oh, okay. I just also wanted to say is that sometimes everything isn't for everybody. You know, that's, even with the BPC, is that the BPC is for a lot of people, but everybody doesn't count because some people just don't like to be held accountable. You know, when you're out here doing this work and really having to be involved in, you know what I'm saying, in these young people's life, this might be passionate for you, but this might be just like a job for some of your friends. You know, but I think that what you should be encouraged to do is, as you do get involved with this work, make new friends. You know, because now you have other people that are just as passionate about making a change as you are. You know, so you don't. One thing about doing this work is sometimes the friendships that we once had, we begin to grow apart from those old friendships because we realize that our priorities are different. You know, so don't be afraid to meet some new people. You know, this just doing the work just may not be for them. You know, so don't let that discourage you.
And I am with Casey County Programs, and I have a lot of emotions about being here today, just because my brother was actually here when they first opened the facility. So he's been home for a while now, and then one of my daughter's friends. But anyway, my question really was just, who do we send the check to? So, Village of Hope. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Unfortunately, I'm not here to talk about money. But my name is Jameer, and I'm from Philadelphia, and I just wanted to say that this flight and the 4-hour drive here was totally worth it. I learned a lot from your stories. regards to education, which is one of your recommendations. Ironically enough, in Philadelphia, we just had $400 million invested into a new prison. At the same time, we had $200 million taken out of our school system. So my question for you would be, what about education would have made you go to class? What about, considering the fact that teachers have limited resources, what would have made you go to class despite what was happening in the neighborhood?
DeMario Dillon, and to answer your question, for me, when I was going to Franklin High School, there was like 30 kids in my classroom and one teacher, so I wasn't really getting all the help that I needed. So I chose to act out and listen to music. But when I was skipping school and went to another school, a teacher there kind of like talked me into going to that school. So when I went to that school, there was 5 teachers to a classroom, and there was 30 kids, so I had a lot of help. And on top of that, he called me on the weekends to see how I was doing, and he knew I liked to do music and stuff. So we had a music class in our school at least, and he kind of used that to his advantage to keep us going to class. And in the process of that, I knew I had friends that wanted to do music too, so I kind of used that to my advantage to get my friends into school, and they got their GEDs. So, and to be honest with you, I don't think that they ever thought they was gonna get their GEDs, and it was fun. It was a fun experience. And that's it.
The Seattle Vocational Institution. Yes, we are.
To also touch on that, school, man, for me, I couldn't relate to anything I was learning in school. If a teacher would have kind of broke it down to me and told me that doing math is the same thing as selling drugs, maybe it would have been a little more relatable. Maybe not in those words, you know what I'm saying? But it's the same thing. I think that when we're able to come up with incentives for kids to go to school, and also take the lure away from them from being in the streets. People go to school, kids go to school from the morning to the afternoon, and they feel like they're not getting nothing out of it. At least that's how I feel. For a lot of kids, when we was going to school, we skipped school because there was nothing that was keeping us there. Many of us wasn't being engaged in the classroom. And I think that this is one of the reasons why the incentives of encouraging kids to raise their grades and complete their classes is important. Because if now they're able to make money by going to school, you know what I'm saying, which I've noticed that there are some programs out there that are encouraging young kids to, if you finish this class, if you finish this GED test, if you complete this level of math, then we will be willing to incentivize you with this. You begin to see that it becomes evidence-based, because now for a lot of kids who are poor, who don't have anything, it makes sense to them. It's like, okay, well, showing up to school, by the end of May, I'm going to be able to get $75 if I take this D into a B. I think it makes sense, you know, but it's about that. It's about encouraging them to make life in education fun. But they also, education has to also be relatable. They have to begin to see themselves in the text. I think that for a lot of children of color growing up, we never was able to see ourselves in the books that we read. You know, so now it's one of those things where even as adults, we find ourselves still not understanding who we are, where we came from, what are the things that we're supposed to value as African Americans or as Hondurans or as Asian Americans. But it's because of the type of education that was given to us. But it's always learning about making education to where not only they're able to relate, but they also see how this is something that their culture is able to contribute to as well.
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm from the UW. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to all of mass incarceration. I think it's really important to like share that with the community because no one really is aware of that. And I can relate to a lot of you in that aspect where, well, I mean, I've never been in prison, but I can relate on the fact that I too came from like my grandparents and I've experienced that feeling of not being the same as everybody else. So I can identify it that way. So my question to you guys is it possible to stop the stigma between what is presented about prisons and the life in prison? That's my question.
I believe it is. We just need more things like this. We need things like this to keep it current. We need you to go tell somebody what you just came and experienced today, and for them to tell somebody what you experienced, and for them to want to come experience it too. Because, like you said, you wouldn't have known a lot of things if you didn't come listen last week. So, I believe the change is possible. We just need more people to be open-minded to come listen and help us with these things that we're trying to get accomplished.
Just to touch real quick, I think her question and his answer goes right along with Ms. Clark's answer, because a lot of people hear the crime that was committed, they hear the time that was given, and that's it. I know I can speak from my own case from the Cairo 7 online, where you can go and make your own comment, victimized for 3 years before I defended, reacted anything. So, like he said, we need more of you guys to speak out and say, hold on, I just went to Clallam Bay, one of the only 2 closed custody prisons in Washington, and these brothers were nothing but respectful, they're smart, they're trying, they're attempting, and they're real. And just like it starts with us in here, we have to try to work with the brothers behind you. You guys have to try to work with the brothers and sisters on the streets. Because we all working for the same cause. So we all got to be willing to put that first step forward. And that's the only way all of us can make it.
First and foremost, I'd like to say I'm proud of you guys for putting this together. The fashion that you did, collectively coming together, so on and so forth. My question is, this deals with 2 issues. And this is what I gathered from what I've heard from you speak. One is the involvement of the community showing alternatives as far as other ways of going about living or dealing with issues. So in prioritizing this, is it looking for the value, educating someone as far as the value of an identity, of being black people in America, looking at our older homies or other people to say this is what we want to be, or this is what we want to have, this is the lifestyle that we want to live. So in essence, we're committing identity theft because we're stealing someone else's identity in order to solidify or find some value in ourselves. And on top of that, I hear also that you're looking for education, a way that someone teaches you as far as in school. I think when you said they compared it to drug dealing, it would be more comprehensive. So I guess my question is, what comes first? Is it the quality of life or the quality of education?
I'll answer that. I think the quality of education is the quality of life. Because the things that you learn are the things that you end up doing most of the time. Especially, like I said, in my community, I saw guys selling drugs and they were gang members, this is who I was around. This is who I was around all the time. This is who I looked up to. They had nice cars and nice clothes. Like I said, I followed in those footsteps. I believe if I would have been around, let me say it like this, like, I see the Asian people in our neighborhood on the store. You see what they do? They bring their families over here and they all work at the store. They all work to get another store. They was taught these things from a young age, how to just good work ethic and how to get new things. And a lot of times in our community, we're not taught that. We're taught you sell drugs or, you know what I mean? So education is quality of life to me. It's the things that you learn when you're young. Most of the times that you end up being, or that you end up doing, that you end up, like you say, identity theft. It's not really identity theft. It's the things that I saw growing up in my house. That's what you're going to be most of the time. Not all the time. I mean, you know, there are people who overcame certain circumstances. But certain education leads to quality of life, how you live your life.
I just want to say to all the guests and everything that I just want you to keep in mind that you are in competition with your kids' interests and your kids' lives versus companies selling cigarettes, alcohol, video games, rap music. You're in competition with your kids' lives. And a lot of times these guys come to these cities and they do their concerts and things, and you need to encourage these guys to come to your schools. You know, if they can go watch the Sonics play basketball, or if they can go watch the Seahawks play football, the Seahawks can come to these schools and they can talk to these kids. And the same thing with these rap artists. You know, they come and they sell their music. You throw a concert in Tacoma, you throw a concert in Seattle. What's wrong with coming to these schools and giving some encouragement back to these kids that are being under influence when you're not around, when they're high on drugs and things like that, and they take the right thing for real life. You know what I mean? So I just want you guys to encourage, you know, be encouraged to have these people come talk at these schools, because when I was in school in Tacoma, there was no, you know, Ludacris coming to our school. There was no football player coming to the school that graduated from the University of Stanford and said, hey, you know, stay in school and play football. You can be a running back like me. You can be a wide receiver like me. So I encourage you guys to encourage these people to come to these schools and talk to these kids instead of throwing a concert and they come to the concert. Go to the school and give back to the community. So I'm just encouraging you guys to understand that you are in competition with your children's life, and these guys should be coming to the school and giving some speeches, not just in Bothell or in Grant, but in other communities that are affected by poverty and other things that are drugs and whatnot. You know what I mean? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
idea that it is over, because it's not. How can we make this more visible?
My name is Felix Zipfall, and I'm secretary for the API group here at Clallam. I got some, I actually read some. It said you need to globalize the local and localize the global. You know what I mean? And what that means is we need to be able to teach our kids that life isn't just a couple square blocks. You know what I mean? When I grew up in Long Beach, California, and LA is only like 20 minutes away, and I didn't even go to LA until I was like 19. You know what I mean? So sometimes kids or people just get stuck in just what they know, and all they know is a couple square blocks. And when I say localize the global. What I mean is we want to bring to light, you know, the problems of our community, but then when we want to localize the local, and localize the global. So when we want to be proud enough to be able to learn what's going on outside of our communities, you know what I mean? So, I mean, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing out there? Is everybody good? First of all, brothers, I'd like to thank you for your speeches. Beautiful job. Everybody, please give the brothers a round of applause. I didn't really have a question. What I wanted to say was that I was talking to Barry the other day about the difference or the difference in my age or your age. I'm like 2 years away from 50. You guys are still in your 20s, fresh, young, and all that kind of stuff, right? But I grew up in the 70s, right? And I remember a story that a guy said in the county jail. He said, man, it's like Iraq out there. You know what I mean? So when he said that, I went to sleep in the bunk because it was 8 East Upper C, you know? And when I went to sleep that night, I said, man, when I was growing up, was it like Iraq out there? Was it like Vietnam out there for me? You know, so how could I identify with you brothers, you know, in the situations, in the streets and the struggles that you went through? Was it that rough for me? But I didn't come to prison until I was 31. So it's not always the environment. Sometimes it's just circumstances and things that occur, you know what I mean? So we can't, when we look at, you know, the violence and the drugs and all that kind of stuff, the drugs didn't get sprinkled on me, man, until I was like 21, and then didn't show in effect until I was 31. So it was progressive. And so, you know, we look at these things and we have to basically just have a broader understanding of things, man. So you guys helped me today by what you said. And I want to just tell you that I appreciate that. And my name is G. Steen, and I'm a member of the BPC.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Garcia, and my day job is working with the Edmond School District, but my life responsibility is working with my communities. And I am honored. I've been honored to say that my job that I hold has been by part of some of the community organizing that I've done voluntarily when I work with child welfare services. So I, in a sense, have an accountability to my community, and I have had that responsibility for the last 4 years, to where I've helped enough to help parents realize the power that they have, and they're working on their own. So I'm really trying to embrace the youth. I was working simultaneously with them. And so they, for the last 3 years, have been putting on a conference, and it's called Creating a Better Tomorrow. And they are talking about racism, oppression, stereotypes, and things that really impact them. And so we're doing this with no money. The school has to offer no money. They're doing a lot of leadership development on learning this. And so what I wanted to set that, to say that it would, if you got, my question is, have you had the opportunity to link with youth in the community? If not, the Edmond School District is there. And as we prepare to move forward, because part of the work on the site that I do is also go to the Seattle Juvenile Center, and I see this work collectively to build collaboration and connections between the jails and the schools. And so my question is, if you've already done that work, where are you at in terms of being able to be present in our communities with our youth? And if not, you are welcome. I'm extending this as an invitation to doing something, because we will be showing the Come On Carter video that you spoke on, and the kids are really wanting to do that because they're familiar with that. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. But if not, you guys have a community you guys are welcome by our community here, with our youth as well too. Thank you.
And to answer your question, one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out a way for us to establish a youth program here at Clallam Bay. You know, obviously there's some checks and balances that has to work itself out in order for us to be eligible to bring children into the prison as a way of us engaging them in different types of things of that nature. But if we're not able to create an opportunity in order for youth to come up to us, then we'll try to continue to create opportunities in order for us to go to the youth. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be in video, whether it be something of that nature, because I think it's definitely important for us to have our presence felt. You know, because for a lot of these guys who are up in this penitentiary, I think that for a lot of the kids that's out there, they were looking up to a lot of these guys. They was learning a lot of the things that they was putting down. And now that they're gone, now they're out there actually trying to now put it into motion what they thought they seen happening. And I think that the negative influence that these guys have on these kids, I think that they also can turn it into a positive one. But that's also a process that we're also trying to do. And as we create an opportunity for us to really be able to talk to our youth, we're trying to create relationships with other cultural organizations here, like the API group and the Hispanic Culture Group, as a way of making sure that the men speaking on these videos reflect the type of communities that we're trying to go to. You know, so we're definitely in the process of, you know, trying to be present in the community, but it's a process nonetheless.